Hello, welcome to another show of New Hampshire Citizens for Progress. We're doing a show today. We in New Hampshire have some of the highest electrical bills in the country. I don't have to tell you that, you know. What if I told you there's something that we could do about it? How much we pay, where that power comes from, whether it's from sources of renewable or sustainable power, exactly what it is. We can do this. Community power is the process of purchasing power for you or our community collectively. I got a couple guests here that are with Community Power in New Hampshire. This is legislation that just passed last session, so it's really new, and we could use a lot of help in getting people to know what it is and how it works.
Hi, I'm Doria Brown. I'm from the city of Nashua, and community power is extremely important because it's going to help us leverage our economy when it comes to energy in New Hampshire and really put us in a position where we can make a difference for our communities.
My name is Henry Herndon. I work with Clean Energy New Hampshire, and we're a statewide nonprofit group. We do education with businesses, with communities, and with individuals on how they can lower energy costs and improve meet their clean energy goals. And we're very excited to be here to be talking about community power, which is a really big and exciting opportunity for the state of New Hampshire and for our cities and towns.
So let's start. What is it? How does it work? What's going on?
I'll let you take this one, Henry.
Sure, I'll kick it off. So as a result of legislation from 2019, we now have the Community Power Law. And what that means is cities, towns, and counties can now procure and provide electricity in bulk on behalf of all of their residents and businesses collectively. So for example, the city of Nashua could implement Nashua Community Power and then become the electricity provider for all of its residents and businesses. And I don't know if you want to say a little about what that might mean for the city of Nashua.
So what community power means for the city of Nashua is that we can, yes, buy energy for our community, but we'd also like to expand that a little bit to be able to provide renewable energy for our community. So what it means to us is an opportunity to kind of open up our electric grid to include some renewable resources.
And just to build on that, what's really exciting about community power is the potential to really build up a New Hampshire energy marketplace where we're looking more and more for local resources, New Hampshire-based energy resources. There's some hydro dams that the city of Nashua owns, and we know there's a lot of communities that are interested in building new renewables, be they solar or storage or other of these new technologies, and community power can really be a vehicle to build up that economy in the state.
Definitely.
So this isn't anything new. I mean, it's not like New Hampshire. We just got the law, but there's been other states doing this for some time. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can take the data and the information they have and apply it here. And that's with Community Power New Hampshire. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so one of the exciting things, or one of the benefits of New Hampshire's situation right now, is we get to look at Massachusetts, which has a version of this law, and New York and California, and all of the really hard lessons that they've learned about the do's and don'ts of how to implement a community power aggregation. And what we've been able to do is apply those both in writing our legislation to be really innovative and cutting edge and allow for all of the sort of modern and technical benefits of community power. And we're looking at applying those in New Hampshire and sort of encompassing all of those best practices. So when we talk about Community Power New Hampshire or CPNH, maybe we can talk about that as well.
Yep. I definitely would say that we're lucky here in New Hampshire because we do kind of have all this information and knowledge to kind of like steal and mold into our perfect community power program that will actually benefit New Hampshire.
So I live in Manchester. There's no one that I saw from Manchester in the Community Power New Hampshire group. What would have to happen for that to be true? You're doing it in Nashua, but what's the steps that have to be taken?
So Nashua has been working on community power for a while, and our first step to kind of get on this journey was to create a community aggregation committee. So we went to our board of aldermen. I believe you have a council in Manchester, right? So you have kind of like a similar...
Yeah, with the city mayor and aldermen.
Yep. You have aldermen?
Yep.
Okay. So we went to our board of aldermen and we said, hey, we'd like to start community power and have a committee for it, and they approved it. So now we have a committee that's looking into how we'd like to do community power, and after that we'll adapt a community power plan, or an aggregation plan if you want to be a little bit more formal. And then that will tell us how exactly we're going to implement community power. And once we get that approved by our Board of Aldermen and we go to our town and say, hey, this is what we're going on. Are you interested? How would you like it tweaked? We'll start doing an actual community power program where we'll buy energy on the third-party market for the community.
Yeah, that's a great overview. And just to build on sort of the process that's laid out in the legislation a little bit, there's sort of 4 simple steps that are laid out in the law. And that's, you're exactly right. The first one is form the aggregation committee. We've seen a number of towns and cities from Lebanon to Hanover to Nashua and various other ones form that committee to begin the process. The committee then creates an electric aggregation plan or a community power plan, which outlines the details. And then they go and they get approval, and that can either be that's from the local legislative body. So for you in Manchester, that's the Board of Aldermen, but for a town, there will be a town meeting vote to approve that plan.
Or selectmen, as the case may be.
Yeah, but the selectmen, the actual approval of the aggregation must be at town meeting for the towns. If it's a town council, it would be a town council vote. Like I think Londonderry or Derry might be some of those towns.
But when Nashua does it, we'll actually go out to public hearings, so the town has the ability to say how they feel about it. So everybody will get a copy of it, and it will be provided to our community so that they still have a say and a choice in what is going on. So it's not just the Board of Aldermen that would make that decision. There would be a public hearing for it as well.
So that's a really good point, Doria, because part of the benefit here is you get to engage your community. It's a community program where you get your residents involved and you get folks learning about the power sector. And it's not only an opportunity to lower rates, but then you can go and engage your residents and businesses with new products, new services, and there's potential to help folks out with different pricing options, help folks out to install new technologies like distributed solar or battery storage, help lower some of those peak costs within your community. And a lot of really exciting things that are on the community education side of community power as well.
So the next step was just the grid. What's part of this? I've worked as an electrician. I've built power plants. I mean, the power from the plants hits the transmission grid. Yep. And then from the transmission grid, we move it around the state, and then we hit the distribution points. Now we're into the distribution grid, and that's where it delivers it down the telephone poles, down the street to businesses and individual residences. What do you guys have to do? You got to build transmission line? Well, what's the story?
So that's a really interesting point. A lot of people don't realize that your energy bill actually has 2 parts to it. You have your distribution fees, and you also have your fee that you pay for your actual kilowatt hour that you use in your house. So your distribution fees are controlled by your utility. Your utility owns the lines, and they distribute that energy to your house. What community power would have influence over is that kilowatt hour charge. So how much kilowatt hours you use and where those kilowatt hours sort of come from on your bill. So distribution will remain the same. You'll be paying your utility for your distribution fees, but your community would be negotiating the rate and the type of energy you're getting in that kilowatt hour part of your bill. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, because the grid exists, and
Yes.
the way it's set out right now is you pay for the distribution of the power in one section of your bill. In the other section of your bill, you pay for the actual power you use, so they're distinct and separate. So you'll just be acting as an agency purchasing the power for our community.
Exactly. Working with the utility also to get that done, because a partnership with your utility and your community aggregation is extremely important to make it work, because your utility provides you data in order to get this thing off the ground. So it seems really simple. You start a community aggregation, right? You buy power and then you send it to your community, but it gets a little bit thicker than that, right? So you kind of have to get data from your utility, you have to get data from your utility in order for this to work. So you ask your utility for the accounts and the names of your residents in order to send out your initial mailer to let people know that this community power program is happening. And then you also need that data from your utility to kind of negotiate the rates for your community. So it's an important partnership between the aggregation and the utility in order to make this happen.
I've done electrical a long time.
Yep.
What is the definition of aggregation? I mean, I hear it
That
bounced
is
around,
important. Yep.
and it's not a
I'll let you
word
take that
that's
one.
familiar to me.
So aggregation, it's a broad term and it can be used in a lot of different contexts, but it's any actor in the power sector who is providing services to many different residents and businesses collectively and is able to provide those services in a way where they're beneficial to the individual resident and business, but then collectively maybe they're going to lower costs overall as well. So compiling those residents and businesses into one big group and then providing electricity or maybe other services, whether they be some of those distributed programs, some of those local renewables we were talking about as well.
Okay, now, where are we at? What can people do? How can we make this happen? And where's community power at? I know this is brand new.
Yeah, so it's a good question, and I think in one sense it's a fairly simple process. You form your committee, you write your plan, and you go out and you purchase electricity. But the power sector can be pretty complex, and there's a lot of back-end business systems that have to go along with this, such as the data collection and the partnerships with the utility that we're talking about. So what a number of the leading communities, including the city of Nashua, the city of Lebanon, town of Hanover, and a number of other partners, what they've been doing is putting their heads together, meeting regularly, and thinking about how can we create a model that makes this easy for all the towns in New Hampshire. So each individual town doesn't have to go and reinvent the wheel each time they want to do a community power program.
So not only having local citizens active at their legislative level in whatever city, town they live in to be able to start this process, we need people with skills in these different areas to join community power so that can be the group that is a resource for each individual town or city, that we've got a real good group of people together?
Yeah, that's right, because it's really about building the local capacity in each individual aggregation committee in that town that has a lot of different diverse expertise and can learn about these issues and learn more about the power sector, and then sharing that information sort of at a statewide scale through this new organization, Community Power New Hampshire, being formed by some of those leading organizations. So when Nashua goes first, or Lebanon, or some of these other communities, and they learn some of the lessons and they pioneer the model, then that could be easily replicated for other communities. And the way they're doing this is through creating this organization called Community Power New Hampshire. And what that would be is a public power organization, really a membership organization where each individual town could plug in as a member, participate in that network, benefit from all the shared technical resources and services, and really have access to the ability to go and have a sophisticated program where they're purchasing electricity in a way that's best for their community and in align with their individual goals as a community.
Yeah, I mean, I can wire a house, a business, or even a nuclear plant, but some of the stuff you're talking about that's not my cup of tea. That's not my area of experience.
And it's really based on some of those lessons when we talked about the other states, and we look at Massachusetts and we look at California. Some of the most successful aggregations, rather than acting as individuals, they come together through joint action, and then they have sort of one set of staff and service providers that can really provide the benefits to all of them. This way you eliminate redundant costs, you eliminate all the duplicative overhead if everyone was kind of going at alone, and you get an even better economies of scale as part of your program.
Yeah, as young as your organization is, I was looking at the biography of the individuals that are participating at this point, and boy, you've got some really unbelievable qualified people in this already.
Yeah, Doria, do you want to talk a little bit about your experience in Nashua and engaging with some of the other folks through CPNH and in the other communities?
So when I started learning about community power, I went into it kind of like arrogant, where I thought I could start a community power program for Nashua all by myself. I don't need a staff, I don't need anything. But then I started to research and really understand what goes into creating a community power program, and thankfully CPNH found me, and the individuals that are part of that group in Lebanon and Hanover helped me figure out how exactly community power would work in Nashua. So the knowledge and energy that everybody brings into that organization is extremely important for a community that's trying to start out on their journey towards community power, because you kind of learn more about each community's efforts. Like Hanover, they had a community power program in the past, so they were able to bring their knowledge. Lebanon was really kind of essential in creating that community power legislation.
Yeah, let's take a minute and maybe just give some
Yeah.
shout outs and talk about like Clifton Below, for
Yes.
example. So he's
Clifton Below, he's amazing.
Below, he's really a hero, and we need
Yes.
to give him the acknowledgement that he deserves. But this is a gentleman, he's an assistant mayor and a city councilor in the city of Lebanon.
Yep.
And he was previously a regulator at the Public Utility Commission, a commissioner at the Public Utility Commission that sets the utility rates. Previously a senator and a representative, but really a humble man and a kind person. Like, there's no ego associated with this, but he's brilliant. And he's been involved
Absolutely.
in a lot of the critical pieces of energy legislation over the past years, from the first restructuring statute we made Eversource sell off its power plants, to some net metering policies. And then he was an author of the community power law as well. And he's been a leader in the formation of the community power in New Hampshire. But yeah, you mentioned Hanover. I mean, working with Julia Griffin, town manager there, and April Salas as well. Some other key leaders and personalities involved in this project. It's been fun.
What are the advantages of community power? Why would we pursue this? What are the disadvantages? Are there disadvantages?
So one major advantage of community power is to invest in renewables. So a lot of people don't see this, but energy is actually a social equity issue. There's a lot of people who have the funds to own their own private solar arrays or private renewables, but a whole community, I bet only 10% of the people in there really have the finances to invest in that. So community power kind of leverages the market so that everybody has access to renewables. Nashua's goal is to, yes, sell energy to our community, but reinvest any profit that we make into renewables that the community will own and be able to make decisions about expanding or hopefully not decreasing the amount of renewables they have. But at the end of the day, the energy future of each community that implements an aggregation is in their hands.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That last point I think is really key, because some communities, they might prioritize green energy or renewable energy, while other communities might prioritize lower cost. And we've seen other markets demonstrate an ability to achieve lower cost than the regulated utility company. But really the choice lies in local control. It lies with the individual community, so you could choose renewables, you can focus on price if you're another type of community. And then there are other benefits in terms of deploying some of those new technologies and really using markets and market competition and innovation to get new companies, modern energy companies into the sector and providing those solutions to residents and businesses. You know, monopoly utilities, they're really good at maintaining the poles and wires, but they're not necessarily the best vehicle to drive forward innovation. We don't really see that in monopolistic sectors. So this is an opportunity, again, where the community power program can partner with the utility and help bring forward some of that innovation.
Exactly.
As an electrician, I've thought about this quite a bit, and regardless of the source of power, if it's a large facility, advantages to the investor and to the company. But as for the stability of the grid, weather, terrorist, maintenance, mechanical, all these can affect that plant because it's so large, and it has an undue effect on our power supply. Whereas if we had communities and many sources of power, it's less apt to, I mean, the biggest thing with Seabrook or even the big coal or gas plants is they have to be protected from someone going in there and blowing it up. But that's not to say natural events don't happen or maintenance doesn't break down. Because it's so big, it has a negative impact on the businesses and the community.
Yeah, I think what you're getting at is resiliency, and that's another piece of this, where if we have more local renewables, local resources with shorter supply chains, they're in our communities, then they're not as at risk for some of those price spikes or events that would disrupt fossil fuel supply chains, things of that nature. So there's potential benefits there as well.
Yep.
So you've been working real hard in Nashua. Can you share with us where we're going?
Yep. So Nashua has a lot of goals when it comes to being more sustainable. And I, as the energy manager, help manage our energy goals. So Nashua adapted a goal to have 100% renewables by 2050. So we're hoping that community power helps to get us there by buying renewable energy sources and being able to integrate some of our supply with our hydroelectric facilities. We generate our own electricity from our landfill, and we own 3 solar arrays, and we'd like to incorporate that into our community power programs to be able to provide that energy back to our residents. So all of this kind of comes together with community power and our energy goals into a nice melting pot of just like goodness.
So what regulations exist that are preventing this from moving forward, or what regulations do we need to help it move forward?
Yeah, it's a good question, Rick. So the energy sector, it's heavily regulated, especially, Eversource, your utility company, and Unitil, Liberty, those types of companies, they're electric distribution companies. So they're regulated by the Public Utility Commission. Now, community power programs, they're not regulated, but they do have to interact with the utilities, and they have to have a data sharing process with those utilities. So the Public Utility Commission is undergoing a process. They actually just released draft regulations the other day that will detail how utilities and community power programs work together on sharing data, and that's really important. So there's constructive progress there. The other potential benefit of these aggregations and of Community Power New Hampshire, which is this vehicle to collectively empower community power programs, is the potential to identify and then remove regulatory obstacles in the future. And we've already seen this to some degree. I mean, the mayor of Nashua and some of the leadership from Lebanon and Hanover have been working very hard collectively at the Public Utility Commission to make sure those regulations are coming out in a way that is beneficial to the aggregations. And that collective voice of local energy leaders really goes a long way to making sure there's no regulatory obstructionism. So definitely potential benefit for communities that can come together and then help to remove some of those regulatory obstacles down the line.
Is there any regulations that being passed would be beneficial to community power right away?
I think we can talk about the one that Clifton Velo, of course, just got passed. If you can say more about that, that would be awesome.
Sure. So Doria is referring to Senate Bill 166, which this was a bill that was recently signed by the governor, bipartisan legislation, and it ensures that community power programs can set their own net metering rates. So net metering is the process if you put rooftop solar on your house and you put that energy back onto the grid, you get a credit for that. And this law just says that if you have a community power program, now you get to choose how you want to compensate distributed solar in your community. And this is really beneficial because, again, when you think about how costs happen on the grid, it has a lot to do with peak times. And Doria, you were just mentioning that we might have had the summer peak. Was it just yesterday?
On Monday.
On Monday.
Yep.
But for example, you could have a net metering rate that told distributed storage in your community, hey, demand is high, just discharge your batteries, put energy back onto the grid because it's expensive now. Or conversely, prices are low, demand is low, let's charge up those batteries, let's play arbitrage. So this connects to a recent bill that was signed by the governor.
It almost sounds like smart metering. I know when I was doing installations, one of the things we had to do was include a hardline phone with the meter for a while there.
Yep.
So there was the ability to do a remote read and other things. But it seems like the more information, the more data you have, the better your decisions can be, regardless of whether it's peak or demand time or how much people use at what points in time, so what industries are active in and what they're using, what their time period is.
Very well said.
Yes.
So is smart metering needed in this, or is that something that would be just beneficial?
Yeah, so it plays a role, and the legislation does give the authority to implement smart metering to community power programs. So they can partner with their utilities to upgrade meters or put forward their own smart meters if they would like. And you're exactly right. That's really important in terms of getting some of the best innovations and the lowest costs.
Yep, that's something that Nashua would definitely look into reinvesting our money into as our community power program gets farther. So actually, you've been asking us a lot of questions, but I kind of have a question for you. As a citizen in a community, if you had a community power program implemented, how exactly would you like that to be? Would you like more renewables? Do you want lower rates? What's your vision?
Oh, absolutely on the renewables. I mean, the science is not in disagreement that
Yeah.
we have a climate emergency. We've been focused on this for too long, and the same people that were involved in the tobacco arguments are the very same people that have been arguing climate science. They're not climate scientists. They're PR people. And they've got us believing that there's questionable. I mean, the only thing that's questionable in regards to climate is exactly what's happening, because there's so many different systems involved. But what we know is it's not good for us. Our weather's going to change rapidly. Exactly how, up, down, wet, dry, it's not exactly sure. And so, yeah, I want to see the less use on fossil fuel. I want to see renewables as best they can. There's both passive and active geothermal. In regards to Manchester, they wanted to do the net metering was a big event in regards to the solar panels at the old dump. It was going to be about a 5 meg system. So it almost sounds like community power, that we could have that system if in fact we had a community power, as opposed to just relying on it as a city ownership, reducing only the city's electrical needs, that we could actually make it a community project instead.
Yeah, I think I like a lot of what you said, and I agree completely. Obviously, climate change is a really important issue for a lot of people right now. And one of the reasons community power is so attractive is because it brings the decision making down to the local level, and then it focuses on how do we introduce business innovations and market forces to solve those problems for us. So it kind of takes the market, takes the monopoly out of it, and it puts the market in as a potential solution for environmental and climate issues, which is something everyone can get on board with.
So we're coming down to the end of the show. We really want to spend some time with what you're doing, how people can help, and how can they get in contact with either their organization. But I'll handle the legislators. Everybody, you want to get a hold of your legislators. You want to get a committee in your town or city to start looking at this, and then skilled individuals that have the experience in these type of areas. They're going to want to get a hold of Community Power New Hampshire, and I'll let you guys wrap it up.
So I do want to say towards the end of the show, in order to help get this off the ground, we need more communities to join together. So if you are a part of a community, I'd love it if you would join CPNH and kind of bring your knowledge into our group, because we need it. The more people, the better. So come join us. It would be great.
Yeah, and folks are definitely encouraged to go to communitypowernh.org. That's the CPNH website. And there's a lot of really good information there. You can email info@communitypowernh.org. And folks are available to answer your questions, help you set up an aggregation committee, help you write your aggregation plan, and really get this program off the ground.
We also have Clean Energy New Hampshire being in the forefront of this.
Huge partners.
Yeah, so Clean Energy New Hampshire, again, that's the organization I work for, the nonprofit. And please go to our website. We're educators. We work with communities across the state, and we rely on our members. So if you want to sign up for membership for Clean Energy New Hampshire, if you support our mission and the work that we do, and you want to get better educated about clean energy opportunities, please go to our website, take a look around, lots of information on policy and businesses and all the resources that are available to you, and consider joining us and becoming part of our clean energy community.
Well, I thank everybody for watching. We'll be doing another show. Take care, be well, be safe, and I'll be putting this up on YouTube with some of these links to these places which you don't get to have on public access television. So thank you. Take care.
Thanks, Rick.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.